What's up, guys? Pittsburgh Weiss Schwartz back again with another deck tech. I am joined by Zach today.
Hello, Brian.
Hello.
Hello, audience.
Who is the only other person in Pittsburgh who has, I think you're the only other person with Niji at all, or at least with Niji 2. So we're the,
With Niji 2, there's
mhm.
some with Niji 1.
So we've been doing some testing with this set, and Zach has been trying out this door choice, Nijigasaki list that we're going to talk about here. As usual, we have our deck list here on the first slide. If that's all you're here for, we will put a link to the Encore decks list in the description. But without further ado, we can jump into the cards themselves here, starting with the Chiuri. So the Chiuri here, on play, gains 2,000 power. If the top card of your deck is a character, you reveal it. And on death, obviously, as I just said, it's a Chiuri. When it dies, discard a card. Look it up to 4, add a level 1 or higher card to your hand from among those 4. Uh, what specifically are you trying to grab off this in this deck? Just a level 1 combo, or is there a certain
Uh,
target, or just deck speed?
Primarily it's the level 1 combo. If you hit that, you always take it pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
unless you already have 3.
Yeah, because...
Also, worthwhile getting the 1-0 back row I
Mm-hmm.
or the Reena if you need to get memory still.
I gotcha. Yeah, having sat down across from this deck a few times already, when they triple the level 1 eye and you don't have any way to crest that 8,500 power or whatever they get to, it's kind of brutal.
8500
Yeah, so
goes up to 9 with the back row I.
mhm. So that can be pretty brutal if you aren't prepared for it. And I imagine the early game of this deck is set to aggressively sculpt for as many copies of that as possible.
That is basically what it does.
Okay.
In its entirety, pretty much the entirety of this deck's level 0 is set up to either get the level 1 eye, get your level 1 eye combo, Climax combo, or get something in memory.
Hmm.
That's pretty much all it's built around doing.
Yeah.
Because you really need to do that in order to get the most out of this deck.
So moving on, speaking of cards that their sole use is to grab your level 1 combo, we have the Kasumi Riki. On play, clock a music character from your waiting room to the bottom of your clock. So not only does it grab whatever you're looking for, usually your level 1 combo, but it also lets you set color in your clock since the deck is more than one color here. It grabs basically the same things that the Chiuri does at level 1 at least. You're looking for, I imagine, the back row eye, and the level 1.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much always use it just to get the level 1.
Yeah.
Pretty much every game I've played with this, that I've had this, I just use it to grab level 1 eye.
Mm-hmm. And you're on 4 of it, so you probably will see it.
Mm-hmm.
3 copies of the Brainstorm. It needs no introduction. It's a self-tap salvage Brainstorm that also has on Climax play, look at your top 2 cards rearrange, which is a relevant effect in this deck since
Yeah, absolutely.
since both your level 1 eye combo takes cards off the top when you play the Climax, lets you set a target if you're only fielding one, and also
Yep.
lets you set a soul trigger on top for the double combo eye finisher.
Yeah, because you can arrange these to happen in whatever order you want. Both the climax combo and the effect of this IMU are on climax placement, so you get to choose the order. I think this IMU does more in decks that run the I level 1 rather than decks that run the Emma Magro, just because the of since the Malgar effect obviously only happens on attack, so
Mm,
it get a lot more use out of it with the eye because with the Malgar you're probably just listing through your deck anyway, so you don't get too much information out of this.
yeah, with the Emma, you play the Climax, you look at your top 2, put them back in some order, then you attack, and you blow through all those cards you just looked at anyway.
Yeah, so you probably still play the IMU in Emma decks because this is still one of the better brainstormers purely by the brainstorm effect in Niji, but it does a bit extra here, which is nice.
Yeah, I think This is the only self-tap plussing Brainstorm in Niji that has a relevant second effect if you're not playing the full associated package. The only other one being the U double rare from set 2, which has an effect that synergizes solely with the IMU finisher. Moving on, 4 copies of this Reena level 0. On play, if you have 2 or less cards in your memory, you can choose a copy of this card in your waiting room and send it to your memory. This is relevant. You need 2 copies of this, correct, in memory for your Restander finisher to go off.
Yes, and also you need at least 1 card in memory to get the power off of the eye.
Mm,
So it's
okay,
really important that you hit this.
right. And then
Unfortunately, the second effect doesn't do too much. It's pay 2, send the standard card into memory, look up to 3, take up to 1. You can do this and grab a climax off of it, which is nice. But this is it's basically like a cantrip effect that several level 3s have. Notably in this set, the Kanata has this, but you also kind of negate a card when you do that because when you use this effect because you're not attacking with it
yeah, you
because
have to
the
kill
card
it.
has to be
Mm,
standing to do this. So it's a way to, if you're really desperate, get this into memory. But other than that, you're probably going to be using this very occasionally to just dig for a climax for your finisher or something.
yeah, you are playing choice triggers, so you will have some amount of stock if you absolutely need to fire this off, but it is definitely a more fringe effect, it seems.
Yeah, this is basically just a package card. It's
Mm-hmm.
not really a good effect you're playing any deck on its own unless you're playing a deck like this,
Yeah,
which needs this to be in
yeah,
memory.
you have to play it because your finisher needs it, and your level 1 wants cards in memory.
Yeah, grit
Uh,
your teeth and play it.
yeah. 2 copies of the this new I Bonder on play, or not on play, continuous. It gives all of your Reena Restander finishers 1500 power and hexproof, which is an extremely relevant effect for a Restander. Can't be money countered, can't be neg sold, can't be tap countered, interacted with in any way. It also has on-play ditch a music character and search your deck for a copy of that Reena we just looked at, that level 0 that sends other copies of itself to memory, or the Restander finisher itself. So this card seems super useful. Originally, I have not tried this deck myself, but originally when I tried playing the Reena Restander with just Niji Set 1 when it was out, the Reena level 0 into the Restander package felt extremely clunky. From what I've seen, this card helps alleviate that issue a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I primarily have used it so far just for grabbing the card that's good to memory, the card we just looked at, simply because this deck's triggers for all climaxes are door and choice, so you have plenty of ways to get the arena into your memory into your hand throughout the game that finish arena. So I
Mm-hmm.
usually use this in the early game to grab a copy of the memory card and send it off to memory using either, if I have one in the waiting room already, I just play it down, or I discard it with some other effect so that I can send it to memory later.
Mm-hmm. And the functional extra copies of that level 0 here are super important because you do need a card in memory at level 1 to make your level 1 combo get power. 1 copy of the Climax Swap, pretty self-explanatory. Uh,
Yeah,
pretty
that's literally all it
Yeah,
does.
pr-
It's just a
pretty.
climax swap.
That is, yep. It's just a vanilla climax swap. It is a nice consistency tool to have because being stranded on one climax when you're looking for the other is never a fun thing. I believe this is the last level 0 1 copy of the I promo from set 1. This card was also reprinted as a Setsuna, I believe, in set 2.
I think it might have. I just used this one because I already had 2
Yeah,
copies
I have this. I
from.
have this one too, but I know all of the
Yeah.
box toppers from set 1 were reprinted on different girls in set 2.
Okay, that's useful to know. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, and I think I need a second copy of that Kanata from set 1 anyway. But
Yeah.
when this card is placed, on the hand or on the stage from your hand, you can mill two. If you hit a climax, you can discard a card from your hand and salvage a character from your waiting room. It is also on play, pay one, ditch one, drop salvage. So it is, if you hit a climax on that mill, it is a double filter. Just another tool at level 0 to help you sculpt into that level 1.
Yeah. I actually think this card is really important to have in the deck. I'm actually considering maybe cutting uh uh something, I'm not sure what, to run a second copy of this, possibly maybe cut the Climax Swap, just because it's if you happen to have a bunch of eyes go immediately to waiting room or to clock, the 1/0 eyes,
Mm-hmm.
the only other way you have to get to them is your Brainstorm, because that's the only other salvage effect in the deck, really.
Right.
So this is really important to have waiting room access, which is important as your Ricky in this deck, I would actually argue.
Yeah.
So it's strongly worth considering cutting the Climax Swap in order to get this, especially because the 3/2 eye in this deck has, when it comes to play, can pay one and salvage a climax. So effectively, your climax swap is only useful for grabbing your door in the early game. Uh, so it's a little bit less useful in this deck than it would be in others. So there is a pretty good argument for going up to two of this eye and cutting the climax swap altogether.
Mm-hmm. Which I'd argue even some of the time not being able to find the gate isn't even that bad if you manage to
Yeah,
sculpt into 3 of the eye, because they just hold board. You just plus off of that
yeah,
alone if your
you
opponent
plus
can't
off
deal
them
with it.
anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of the eye, our first level 1 card here is the eye itself. If you have a card, any card in memory in this deck, that level 0 Reno we looked at, this card gains 2,500 power for each other copy of this card in your front row. So if you have 3 of them, this card gets an extra 5,000 power and will sit at 8,500 plus whatever other power boosts you're getting from your back row. The Climax combo, when you play the door, for when you play the door, you get to look at the top card of your deck. If it's a music character, add it to your hand, and the card also gains Twin Drive for the turn.
Uh, So worth pointing out that the way this is translated, it says choose up to one music character from a. You look at the top card, you choose up to one from among them, show it your opponent, put it in your hand, put the remaining cards in waiting room. So if you top check and you hit a climax or an event, you can just discard it, and then
Mm.
the other eyes won't necessarily whiff because of that. So
Right,
this
yeah.
basically like shotguns through the top 3 cards of your deck, and then also has trigger check and also attacks. So this is actually a surprisingly decent mill option when you're going through your first deck.
Yeah, between the 3 cards that it hits and the potential 6 cards you can get from twin driving 3 times, that is a decent amount of deck speed from a card that doesn't actually looks like it moves through that many cards.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to our next level 1 card here, we have this card gives me nightmares. Frontal 500 power. When you trigger a soul on your attack, choose one of your music characters. That character gets 2k power for the turn. And you said you're on like 1920 soul triggers in this deck.
Yes, I'm currently on 20, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Which
So
is I should point out less than the old HDMI list does that usually runs 27, 28. So this card will be a lot. It will happen. You will get the 2K less often than you would in other decks or in the old deck, but I still think it's worth including, primarily because of standby.
mm-hmm.
Because the eyes, the 1/0 eye is really big if you're facing a 1K1 deck. It's basically, if you're running 1K1 deck into this and they get the 3 eyes off, it's gonna basically be like them fighting a standby deck.
Mm-hmm.
However, against actual standby decks, it can be hard to get over your opponent's boards sometimes. So that's why I think this card is important to run, in addition to the small 500 power boost assist and the rest give 500.
Yeah, so statistically, if your deck is relatively evenly distributed, you should be hitting one, maybe two souls every time you swing 3 times in a turn, which giving 2,000 power in a lane during combat every turn is definitely not an irrelevant effect, sometimes more if you get a little bit lucky.
Yes, this card can do some good work. Even with this, however, against Sandbow, you'll probably still fall off come level 2. But by that point, you'll have access to your early plays, and you'll have other ways to contest board.
Mm-hmm.
And against Awoken ones, this is basically just a one more card. Helps you get over backups and the like.
Yeah, you win
And,
lanes
and
for, you
keeps
win lanes
your
for free. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and helps keep your 1/0 eyes relevant going into level 2 as well. Since they'll still be able to hit over potentially your opponent's early plays if you get lucky with your triggers.
Yeah, I mean, if you still have 3 of them in the front row, they are 85 on their own. Most early plays only sit at like 9 or 10, so 2K you hit over them easy, assuming your opponent's not holding a backup. Up next, we have 2 copies of the Reena Ramorous-esque profile. On
Yeah,
play,
Rampress-esque.
on play, pay 1, search your deck for a level 0 or lower music character. Uh, put it on your stage, and then it goes to memory at the end of the turn.
This is basically just uh, an option for you to still get memory if you happen to whiff it early on.
Mm.
It will obviously this is level 1 card, so this will, if you end up having to play this will still delay your eyes getting out by a turn, which could be potentially bad. But this still gives you a way to get that activated at some point.
Yeah.
You obviously, when you play this, you hit the 0/0 arena that goes to memory, so you can try to meet that condition. And since this is usually already level 1, by the time you're doing this, you'll probably be able to just side a 0 or something, or direct attack with the arena, so you can get some value out of it before it goes to memory.
Yeah. The old slime switcheroo. Also at level 1, we have 1 copy of this broken Adachi. Uh,
Broken.
when this card becomes reversed, it's a yellow Adachi, so it sends the opponent's character to stock and then puts the bottom card of their stock to waiting room. But it also has, at the beginning of your encore step, this card can be reversed because it hasn't been sent to the waiting room during the encore step yet. If this card's in your front row, and you can pay the cost, which is just to send this to the waiting room. If you do, choose a music character in your waiting room and send it to stock. So it just pays for itself. We're not even playing the change target. It's a free Adachi all of the time. Even if this is your last attack, you refresh, have no waiting room. The cost is to put itself into the waiting room, and then suddenly you have a music character in your waiting room that you can stock. So I'll take a free Adachi, as if the
That
profile
that
wasn't
that
good enough.
is indeed pretty good. The I have looked at the change target. It's pretty okay,
It's
just
okay. Mm-hmm.
because you obviously get something out of it when you pivot out of your free Adachi into something else. But I I just don't think there's enough deck slots to get in to really commit to that. I would rather use the extra spots for the arena just to make sure I hit the memory condition.
Yeah, agreed. The draw would be at the very least that you don't leave an open slot in the slot that your
Yeah,
Adachi was, but deck's tight.
yeah.
All right, and our last level 1 here is a 2K counter. Very exciting, but sometimes necessary to protect those eyes that are already sitting at 8,500 in case your opponent manages to scale them.
Yeah, the deck crutches enough on your eyes living for you to be able to plus uh, if you happen to with your combo, or if you're or even if your eyes are just living through. So it's important to be able to just protect them, and this helps you do that.
Fair enough. Speaking of backups, we have one copy of this Shioriko anti-change counter. Uh, Pay 2, sack a character, anti-change to waiting room, 2500 power.
Mm-hmm. This is the exact same thing that the Mushoku has.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same effect. It is pretty sad if you have to sacrifice an eye to do this, but if you're using this against an in early play, and this is your only way of taking it out, it's worth doing this just to either force him to encore or to remove the threat, just to make sure your other two eyes, or just to make sure your opponent doesn't get too far ahead.
Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes just killing an anti-change or not killing an early play as it attacks lets you block 2 or 3 damage, and sometimes that just makes all the difference.
And yeah, and it's also worth just running this so if your opponent sees it, they see you have it, and you make them respect it. You make them play around
Of
this.
course, yeah. Even if you have no intention of playing it, just them knowing that it's there is a threat in itself. And our next card is yet another backup. A 3K backup. The character in the lane where you back up gains. When this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, send that character to memory.
Yeah, this is basically just a bigger level 2 backup that permanently gets rid of stuff if you're playing against standby or something.
Mm-hmm.
Also worth considering for this bigger backup spot, Nijigasaki 2 actually has a 4K level 2 backup that gets 2500 base plus 1500 if you have experience 4. So if you're in a meta where you need even bigger than a 3K backup for some reason, that is another option you can run in this spot.
Mm-hmm. Trying to think if that extra 1000 power threshold is relevant right now. That puts your eyes at this puts your eyes at 11.5, maybe 12 with the back row. The other one puts you at 13, which doesn't quite match like summoned Rushia. So I think the memory kick is okay in the current
Mm-hmm.
meta.
Yeah, just worth considering the experience backup if you're in a super weird meta or something, I guess.
Hmm. All right, on to our level threes. The Reena Restander finisher. It is on play, gain Musashi burn for the turn. That is, when this card's damage is cancelled, you mill the top card of your deck and burn your opponent for X damage, where X is 1 plus the level of the milled card. And you'll have 2 chances to trigger this because this card is a Restander and it will attack twice. Uh, Card has at the end of its attack, if the climax is out, pay 1, discard 2 cards. If you have 2 or more of that level 0 Reena that needs to go to memory, that this whole deck is structured around getting into memory, you get to restand. So,
And keep in mind, you have that 0/0 that gives us 1500 power and hexproof, and this card becomes super dangerous to play against.
I mean, 3 instances of damage on a single card. It doesn't have a normal like cantrip or heal effect like a level 3 does, but in its place, it has an extra instance of damage. So if you feel I feel like usually 2 copies of this is what I see come down because the hand cost is so steep.
Yeah, but and with that, that's like what potentially 7 instances of damage for off of 6 total stock.
Yeah, which
It's
is
pretty efficient.
that's very efficient. Yeah. I mean, the Musashi burn alone, if your opponent's sitting on a relatively decompressed deck and you manage to snipe a climax off the top, the extra burn sometimes just gets you there.
Yeah, this card when I was first playing it was a lot more impactful than I thought it would be. I kind of when I was first building this deck, I actually thought it was a bit of a meme because I built this deck primarily just because I wanted to play that level 1 eye. But this card really puts in the work, especially with
Mm-hmm.
all the support it now has. This
Yeah.
is this was a very much a pipe dream, as you were saying earlier, Brian, back in just set one, but now it's a real option to consider when you're brewing Niji.
Yeah, that level 0 eye that bonds to it and gives it hexproof completely makes this card. Breathes complete new life into this combo. Also at level 3, 2 copies of Early Play Heal, 2 or less climaxes in Waiting Room. On the turn it's played, gains 3k power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So it comes down, sits at 11.5 for a turn cycle, and then dies usually. But
Comes down, heals is pretty decently big. You might see on the text it has a merge effect. We do not play the merge effect that requires you to play some not great cards for the benefit of doing this for one less stock in a deck that has plenty of stock anyway, because you get to save a ton of resources from your eyes not dying for the first half of the game. So not much of a reason at all to run that unless you're trying to be super greedy with your stock.
yeah, which, as we just talked about, the finisher is pretty efficient. So hoarding stock, and you're on the choice trigger too, is
Yeah.
not especially relevant in this deck. We do run one copy of the full field ditch heal to stock. It's Mesmerizing Water Goddess from Konosuba, swings at 11k, sits at 9k on your opponent's turn. Just an extra third healer with a different condition in case you get stranded with too many climaxes in Waiting Room. Lets you still get a heal off.
Yep, just an alternate strategy to your Shizuru. I
Mm-hmm.
usually the way games go for me, you end up with two or less right as you're hitting level 2 anyway, so usually Shizuru will be the play. But if you're in a weird game, it's good to have this option here
Yeah,
as a backup
for
plan.
sure. We play 3 copies of a different level 3 combo. This is a double combo with the gate that combos with the level 1 eye. This card is on play, pay 1, you can salvage a climax. So it either can secure your climax for your Reena combo if you're going for that, or lets you play a different game plan by grabbing the gate. Combo is when you play the door for the turn, this card gains 1500 power, and when this card triggers a soul on its attack, you get to burn your opponent 3 for free.
Yeah, this is basically just a coin flip option. Um, I actually have not checked what the entire path is. I think that might be an event.
I it, I
That
feel like
sounds like what it might
it
be.
has to be. I don't know what it
Yeah.
does off the top of my head though.
Whatever. Even if it was something that would help increase the odds of this, I probably wouldn't play it, just because this is the arena is very much the star of
Yeah.
the show at level 3.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing this or using it because you're playing choice and the extra stock overhead that you can afford to pay 3 stock to grab your finisher climax, which I've done a number of times with this card, or you completely whiffed your everything for the arena. I've had a couple games where I've completely whiffed memory, and I've
Mm-hmm.
had to go into this. It is obviously not very reliable, but it's effectively it's better than vanilla swinging because there's no cost to doing the climax combo here.
Yeah.
It's you're basically just slamming, and maybe you'll do a little bit more.
Yeah. It's a backup plan in case the arena doesn't go off. It is since you're on 3 of it, it's an extra soul trigger you can throw into stock if you trigger a stray choice here and there. But you are able to set 1 burn for 3 for yourself usually with the IMU Brainstorm does let you look at top 2 rearrange.
Hmm.
So you usually, assuming there is a soul in the top 2 cards of your deck, is guaranteed 1 if you do have to pivot into this.
Yeah. Also worth pointing out, this has a really high 10,500 base power. So it'll usually be sitting at 11 together with the eye back row, which
Mm.
is still not bad for level 3.
Which even matches some of your opponent's level 3s with climax combo. Some things only sit at 10k and get to 11 with climax. So sometimes you'll just trade with things for no reason. And our last card at level 3 here, one copy of this yellow Draco Buster style event. Uh, uh, Level 3 cost 4. Your opponent reveals the top 6 cards of their deck, shuffles their deck, and puts the top X cards of their deck into their clock. Puts them there uncancelable. X is the number of Climax cards you saw in those top 6. So you are in choice. You do have
And the
that
bottom
extra,
deck itself.
and it goes to the bottom of your deck. Yeah. So you are in choice. You have that extra stock overhead. Sometimes, if you can afford it, this extra uncancelable damage just gives you that extra edge, so your actual finisher can get there.
It's basically a push your opponent over the cliff card.
Mm-hmm.
It's something if you have the stock overhead and your opponent has scary backups, you can just play this and say, all right, I'm just gonna play this, and you're pretty good chance you're gonna just die.
Yeah, just uninteractive, deal some damage to your opponent if their deck state is decent. If you judge that they probably have some climaxes in there.
Uh, and unlike Draco Buster, it doesn't have a character requirement. You don't need to have a specifically named character on stage or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to play all around for the cost of checking one less card.
And that's it. Here's the entire deck list. As we mentioned at the start, the general game plan, you spend the entirety of your level 0 sculpting hard for as many I level 1 combos as you can. At level 1, you vomit those eyes onto the board. They sit at 8,500, 9k with the back row behind them. You coast on that for as long as possible, building resources until you hit level 3 and try to blow your opponent out with the Reena finisher.
Yeah, one thing I will say about this deck is obviously you don't have much of a backup plan if the eyes don't work out for whatever reason. Which is why we try super hard to make sure your eyes do work out. So as Brian said, you have to bend over backwards to try to make sure the eyes work, and you have to do everything you can to support them the best you can. When it does work, it feels a lot like you're playing. It feels like you're almost playing a standby deck as a 1k1
Mm-hmm.
because you're you're playing 1k1 climaxes, but you're still walling your opponent out super hard because most 1k1s can't beat even like the 7/5s that most regular standby decks get to,
Mm-hmm.
or at least they can't beat the whole field. So this is even bigger than that. It's as big as Mushoku gets on average at level
Yep.
1.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just you're. It's almost like you're playing Mushoku, but with the bit with all the benefits of uh of building into a more explosive finisher.
Yeah, of playing a 1k1 deck too, you get to,
Yeah.
if you get your combo off at level 1, you get to push a little bit of extra damage while you have your board sitting at 8,500 or higher power.
hmm And you're getting the cards coming in your hand a lot more because of your better triggers,
Mm-hmm.
or instead of just building a board. With that said, I haven't had too much experience running this into standby because when I was testing this, it was right after uh, regionals, so everyone was sick of standby. Um, However, I have tried to. I do think this is probably the kind of you want to play in order to try and do as best as you can against standby with their various backup options and with the 1-0 back row I do think that this can do pretty okay against standby at least,
Mm-hmm.
assuming you don't have an absolutely atrocious game.
Right. Yeah, I think I've always been looking for a deck that plays a non-standby board-based deck, and I think this is probably one of the best ones I've seen. The fact that the eye just gets to 8,500 for free, and 8,500 is the power level to beat in the at least in the meta right now, with Mushoku uh, sitting at 8,500. I think nothing sits much bigger than that, and a lot of the time 1k1 decks can't even breach that power. So this deck should especially if you're holding up a backup, should win almost all of your lanes every turn if you tri-field your eye. And to my knowledge, nobody is playing any sort of bombs at level 1 right now into maybe reverse bombs, but
Hmm.
it's definitely not bomb meta right now since it's so standby heavy.
And also, even against bombs, we didn't really talk about this, but the I 10I has a soul trigger, so you can just take it back super easily off of
Mm,
a choice.
yeah,
It's just like there's so you have plenty of options to get into the eye if it ever dies, even so.
yeah. All of those 1-0 eyes just have soul triggers for some reason.
And it must be the same reason that as the set one. So yeah, set one, set two.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely helps your choice options there. Gives you some extra choice fodder over the course of the game. Lets you run extra soul triggers to push damage and fire off your off finisher too. And I think that's about it. As usual, we have our links to everything at the end here, links to the card games and competitive Weiss discords. If you're looking to chat with other players about the game, these are probably the places to do that. The Weiss Global and NA Facebook pages are your destination for buy, sell, and trade of Weiss Schwarz cards and product. And Weiss Fight, if you feel the urge to try this deck out or to try any other deck out, you can log on to Weiss Fight. It's free to use right in your browser. Put in an Encore Decks link, and you are playing with other players all around the world straight away. But that is about it for this video. With that, Pittsburgh Weiss Schwarz signing off. See you next time.